What's going on, everyone? My name is Jake. This is Where I Talk Capes, and today we're here to talk about Marvel in 2025. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to 2025. What could and should be a landmark year for Marvel. Now, it's no secret Phase 4 and 5 have been complicated. Phase 4 was all about legacy, and at the time no one really knew until it was done, but we can look back on that and we can succinctly wrap that up as the legacy phase. But Phase 5 has been a lot trickier to tie down. Phase 5 began in 2023 with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, when Ant-Man killed all of Kang's credibility, before Jonathan Majors killed all of Jonathan Majors' credibility. Following that, we got Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Secret Invasion, Loki Season 2, The Marvels, I thought it was fine, and What If. I have no opinion, I have never watched What If, any of the seasons. But after one of their worst years as a studio, both commercially and critically, and their first real commercial bomb in The Marvels, the studio decided to hit the brakes going into 2024. Going into 2024, Marvel made the decision to hit the brakes on the content machine, and I think everyone can agree that was the right decision. Slowing the release schedule down and releasing 5 things over the course of the year. The year began with Echo, a show I still haven't watched, but I heard mostly positive things about, that was then followed up by X-Men 97, another show I still haven't watched. I know, I'm sorry, Ewan, don't get mad at me. I would have heard nothing but praise for that. That was then followed up by the only movie of last year, which was Deadpool and Wolverine, a movie which I really enjoyed. That was then followed by Agatha All Along, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. And then the year ended out with What If Season 3. Once again, I've not watched What If. Should I watch What If? I feel like we're going to come to What If quite a lot throughout this year with other projects, so I think I might have to, but it's just never really something that's interested me. So, after making the objective right decision to slow everything down, 2025 has some serious implications for the future of Marvel. You would think that after all the success they had in slowing down last year, they may attempt to follow that up with another year with less content, but with a lot of stuff that was pushed back and retooled. This year Marvel are coming out swinging with a total of 7 projects releasing throughout 2025. So, that's why I'm here today. We're here to talk about every project released in 2025 on the Marvel slate. Now, this is a video I had most of my script written for, and then at the start of December, Nando V Movies released this video, and I went, for fuck's sakes. So I didn't. However, you may notice there's a lot less rambling in this video, because there's a lot to cover. I wrote a script. You may be able to tell this bit is off script. But we're here to talk about the 2025 Marvel slate, and we're here to just break everything down and look ahead to what could be one of the biggest years for Marvel Studios. At the time of recording, we are only 11 days away from the release of the first project of the year, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. A lot of the things I saw were from leaks and photos that people took attending D23, as well there was that little clip on that trailer when he throws that brick into that guy's head. Peter, you've killed that guy. But within these D23 leaks, we do see some interesting things there. The character of Nico Minoru is set to appear in this as one of Peter's classmates. For those who don't know, Nico Minoru is typically involved in the Midnight Suns and that sort of spooky world of Marvel. Another new character that we could possibly be introducing down the line. We also have Coleman Domingo, one of my favourite working actors today, voicing Norman Osborn, and I think that is just the perfect choice. Cast him in live action, make him the real MCU Norman Osborn. He's absolutely perfect for it and deserves to be in that spot. Now, from what I've heard, What If Season 2 really did hone in on introducing these characters before we properly see them in the MCU. So with this, I imagine the addition of a Nico Minoru and possibly a Coleman Domingo Norman Osborn could maybe mean that we're going to see these guys pop up in other actual canon projects, because this isn't canon, this is its own kind of Elseworld story. But the inclusion of these characters does bode well for the future of the MCU. Maybe we see Nico Minoru introduced in something soon. I have a feeling we're definitely going to see Norman Osborn introduced in something soon, or reintroduced rather, in something soon. And I think this is the perfect place to get a lot of the audience on board with these characters. And I guess in the case of Coleman Domingo's Norman Osborn, this version of this character. As a Spider-Man fan, I'm really excited for this. I know it's not canon, but I don't really care. It's a fun animated show about Spider-Man in high school. It has its own very unique animation style that's completely different to What If, which is one thing I'm going to touch on later. I'm very excited for this. Then the first canon Marvel Cinematic Universe project of the year releases in February, Captain America: Brave New World. Pour one out for Seth Rollins. Rest in peace, King. All of my worries with this movie stem from one thing and one thing only: the death of media literacy. Back in the mid-2010s, Disney decided to hire a director who is as critical of capitalism as George Lucas is critical of war, and to be perfectly honest, Rian Johnson is also incredibly critical of war, but mainly looking at it through the fact that it's all caused by capitalism. He then went on to make a Star Wars movie that is, let's just say, divisive. Because of that, now no big movie franchise allows directors to take creative swings and everything is focus grouped and moulded and tested and reshot and reworked, all because people didn't like The Last Jedi and were wrong. It's a great movie. The trailers for this do look amazing, but apparently the first cut of the movie tested poorly, which led to more reshoots after the first trailer was released. The big issue is, if this movie doesn't do well, in the minds of these idiots, this vindicates the racist witch hunt of Anthony Mackie. This vindicates the tearing down of Anthony Mackie and the character of Sam Wilson, who is Captain America, in the eyes of so many. And to be completely honest, because these big corporations only care about the amount of money that it brings in, if you had the Marvels not do well, and then if you have this not do well, there is a real chance that once again all of our superheroes are white men forever. Except for the ones that I guess these racists will allow, like a Black Panther or whatever. These people who will be like, oh, what if Ryan Gosling played Black Panther? It doesn't fucking count. It's not that. One, that would rock for a start. Two, Sam Wilson's Captain America. Get over it. For the sake of creative freedom and artistic integrity, this movie needs to, one, do well, and two, at least be decent. Because we need to allow these directors to take these swings and to move in interesting places with these legacy characters when they pick up these new mantles. Now, something pointed out by Nando in his video that he made over a month ago is that all the trailers of this kind of seem to be going for the vibe of the Winter Soldier, except we haven't had time to grow and care about these characters the way that we did with Steve and Bucky, so it doesn't have that personal connection that we had to Steve going into that movie. Now, that movie is one of my favourite MCU movies. I think if you're going to look at a Captain America movie to emulate, that is the best one to do. I have faith. It may be misguided faith, but I do have faith. I am tempering my expectations, but I still do have faith. One thing we know for sure though, the action in this movie is going to be incredible. So that's a plus. Next up then is Daredevil Born Again, the project I am probably the second most excited for on the year. There are two projects releasing next year, the two projects I am the most excited for, and to be perfectly honest, out of the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, these two things are probably the most I've been excited for non-Avengers projects, maybe only rivaled by Spider-Man Homecoming, and Daredevil Born Again is one. Now, I've still not finished season 3 of the Netflix show. I know how it ends. I know it's amazing. I'll probably go and rewatch the entire show before this comes out, but I absolutely loved that show. That show got almost everything right. When the news broke that Daredevil and the Netflix shows were getting folded back in to the MCU, I was very excited. And then the news broke that realistically they were only going to be bringing back Charlie Cox as Daredevil, and I got less excited. When he showed up in No Way Home, I went insane for a brief period of time, and when he showed up in his yellow suit and She-Hulk, I absolutely loved it. I was kicking my feet, giggling the whole time. He was brilliant in that show, which was also brilliant. Also, I didn't finish all of Echo, but I did watch the first episode, and good God, that fight scene in the first episode was fantastic. It was perfect. It was cinema. When the show was originally announced then, it was announced that it was going to be 18 to 24 episodes of a sort of legal courtroom drama, and then last year they realised that wasn't working. It apparently didn't suit up until like episode 10, something like that I think, so they scrapped the whole thing and started again. Within the original idea for the show, there was only one other actor apart from Charlie Cox returning, and that was Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. No news of the Punisher, no news of Karen or Foggy or anyone else. And I thought that was a massive mistake. So, they course corrected. Bringing back Eldon Henson as Foggy Nelson, bringing back Deborah Ann Wall as Karen Page, and bringing back John Bernthal as the Punisher was objectively the right decision. Apparently also in the reworking of this show, it's when Marvel decided that you can't just make TV shows be 6-hour movies chopped up into 4 or 5 episodes. We need to hire showrunners. We need to look at this from a TV perspective. So they brought in a showrunner and they completely reformatted how this show works. With all the news coming out, they were doing everything they could to save this. I got very, very excited, and I'm going to be completely honest, if this is bad, it's not looking good for me seeing 2026. The show apparently follows the trial of a vigilante that Matt Murdock is representing in court, which is something that we didn't get to see in the Netflix show somehow. We got it a little bit with the Punisher in the court, but he immediately admitted he was guilty so he could go to jail and kill everyone in the second attempt at the hallway fight scene. I also haven't read a lot of recent Daredevil, but I know that Muse is one of the newer and more iconic villains from Daredevil. He is in the trailer. Muse debuted after the Netflix show. I don't know if it was after the Netflix show was done or if it after it started, but realistically there's not a lot of great Muse stories to adapt, but From the things I've read from Muse, I think Muse is really cool, got a fun look, got a fun thing going on, and I think it is the right decision to bring in someone new and not just go for Kingpin and Bullseye again. I also think the fact there isn't one big definitive Muse story leads a lot of creative freedom to the writing team, because they don't have these things to be pulling from. They can essentially create the first big iconic Muse story, which is a really interesting opportunity for this show. I think not having a definitive run of Muse takes a lot of pressure off the shoulders, because we don't want another Gore the God Butcher on our hands now, do we? Overall, out of all the projects releasing this year, Daredevil Born Again is firmly in my number 2 spot for excitement, and I can't wait for this to come out. Next on the slate is Thunderbolts**, a movie I originally wasn't very excited for, and then the trailer dropped, and now I'm very excited for it. Now, my favourite iteration of the Thunderbolts is the Zemo-led villains masquerading as heroes thing. I always think that's a lot of fun, and when the initial lineup was released, where it's a lot of super soldiers and Ghost and Taskmaster and, you know, they're all just kind of there, I was like, this is fun, but where's the real variety in this? Where is the story in this? Where's the conflict in this? They all kind of do the same thing, basically. They all operate the same space, Black Ops, Deep State, all this spy espionage stuff. It was then announced that the writing duties of this fell to the writer of the show Beef, the Netflix original series Beef, starring Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong. I never watched it. I heard it was very good. Then when I was about to watch it, I'm pretty sure I remember Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong being like, hey, one of our co-stars made rape jokes, but like got really into it and told a real fucked up story, and that's not cool, but that's still our brother and we gotta get him the help. And everyone was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I remember that, and it put me off ever watching Beef. So I've not watched it, but from what I know, it's about two people whose life is going off the rails, who just encounter each other whilst their life is going off the rails. And then this lineup makes perfect sense. We have 4 depressed super soldiers, Ghost, Taskmaster, and Bob. Everyone's life is a total mess. I also absolutely love the first trailer with Yelena saying that she's throwing herself into her work to find purpose whilst buildings explode behind her. I think that is an absolutely fantastic touch. I'm also really intrigued by the addition of the Sentry into this. If you don't know about the Sentry, I'm not going to get into his origin here, but it's a very cool and interesting character, and I'm very excited to see how they work his mythology into the already existing mythology of the MCU. It's definitely a weirder place to introduce him, but I do quite like it. Overall, I think this is going to be fun. The writer of this is known for a thing where everyone's life is falling apart and they're trying to hold it together. And what do you know? Everyone in this life is falling apart as they try and hold it together. So I do think this is going to be fun. And I have fairly high expectations for this. Not fairly high expectations. A lot of hope. I would say my hopeometer is quite high for this. I feel like I'm just tempering all expectations apart from 2 projects on the year. Thunderbolts is set to end Phase 5, and you would think they would want to kick off Phase 6 with another big release, but before we get there, we do have one stop. When it was announced that Marvel were going to take time with their output, reshuffle the deck, and reassess the situation in 2024, one show seemed to get lost in the mix. With the retooling of Daredevil and Thunderbolts being widely celebrated, it still kind of felt like one announced, and I'm pretty sure had already been mostly filmed at that point, project wasn't getting any love. And that is, of course, Ironheart. I don't seem to recall there being any reshoots or retooling on Ironheart, and it kind of felt like there was no real good place for them to release it, and it still doesn't really feel like a great place to release it, and maybe they are just dumping it to get it out because it's done, and then they can move on and maybe pretend it never happened, especially if you sandwich it in between Thunderbolts, which is probably going to be a lot better than everyone is expecting, and the Fantastic Four, which we will talk about. It does kind of feel like they're not necessarily setting this up for failure, but they're setting this up just to get it out the way, which I think is a shame. Now, maybe they are just dumping it in between 2 movies to get it off the slate, but from what I've heard and the leaks that came out of D23 and other things that have been shown, I think this could be fun. It seems to follow Riri Williams after being kicked out of MIT, where she then joins a gang led by Anthony Ramos's The Hood, even though it's a cloak, but there's another guy called Cloak, so we don't worry about that. And they do heists and stuff. It all sounds like a lot of fun. Riri really worked for me in Wakanda Forever. I like Anthony Ramos. I don't think this is going to be the most consequential thing that Marvel will ever release, but I do think it'll be quite fun. I also like how the suits feel tangible. Riri doesn't have all this money to make fucking nanobots and things that'll, a million suits. It feels like she's going to have to repair and upkeep and upgrade these suits throughout the series, which I really like. It does feel like it's being dumped, but I still think it could be fun. We'll just have to wait and see. Up next is the big one, huh? My first video on this channel was talking about this movie. The Fantastic Four First Steps. I don't think it's a stretch to say that this movie has the most pressure any Marvel project has had on it since Endgame. The pressure on this movie is coming from a few different angles. First of all, we've never really seen a good Fantastic Four representation on screen. I love the ones from the 2000s. Well, love is a bit of a strong phrase. I love Michael Chiklis in it. I think Chris Evans is a lot of fun. Those movies do have their standout moments and their good points and things from them that I like, but it still doesn't feel like a really good representation of the Fantastic Four. And the less said about Fant Four Stick, the better. I'm going to aim for that to be the only mention of that movie on this channel ever. I don't think I've ever mentioned it before, and I don't want to mention it again because we spread positivity on this channel. From the leaked Comic-Con teaser with the dating game and Reed on a children's TV show and the documentary filming them behind the scenes as they go about their life, everything in this seems perfect. It's exactly how I want the Fantastic Four to be portrayed on the big screen. The marketing and the highly stylized posters harkening back to an era of the 60s and this sort of retro futuristic techno dreamscape is fantastic. All of the marketing materials for this have been amazing. But on top of the fact that this movie has to deliver a really good representation of the Fantastic Four to a wider audience, this also has to prove that Marvel can make different movies and explore different corners of the universe. This movie has to prove that not everything has to be grey, green screen, fight the big bad guy at the end and ignore all the character development because we made this on an animation software 2 years ago for this movie before it had a script. Go fight him now, looking at you, Shang-Chi. This movie has to prove there is more to Marvel than just that. And to be completely honest, I don't think it's a stretch to say that the existence of Phase 7 kinda hangs in the success of this movie. Luckily, I think this will deliver. I think just like Superman showing a different side to superhero movies, especially with the team involved and the director involved and the cast involved and the vibes involved, I think it's going to be very hard for this not to stick the landing. The writing team for this also includes, to name a few, Josh Friedman, who worked on Avatar 2 and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Eric Pearson, who worked on Thor Ragnarok and Transformers 1, as well as Peter Cameron, who worked on Carnival Row and WandaVision, and behind the camera, manning the ship, the director, Matt Shakman, who done WandaVision, and also Charlie Work. The guy who directed Charlie Work has a Fantastic Four movie. I am seated. I am there. Up next then is another Marvel animation project, and that is Eyes of Wakanda. Eyes of Wakanda is a 4-part limited series. It's being produced by Ryan Coogler, but it's not the Okoye spin-off that was attached to. I don't know if that's still happening or if he's still working on it, but it's not that. It is an anthology series chronicling the tales of 4 Black Panthers in various periods throughout history. I think it looked like one where he was fighting like Vikings on a boat. That looks cool as shit. I'm very intrigued as to where this goes. I'm very excited for it. I don't have a lot of notes or a lot of thoughts. I just think this will be cool. And again, like I said earlier, this has a very unique and distinct animation style. It's not like What If, it's not like X-Men 97, and it's not like Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. This is its own thing, which I really like. I really like that Marvel Animation seems to be giving these creative teams the creative freedom to present their vision in the way that they would like, and not just have it go into one blanket animation style because it's Marvel Animation. Allowing that freedom to these teams to create these worlds and present them through the means of animation is a wonderful idea. And when you look at all these different projects side to side and you see the differences in the animation and you think what project it is attached to, you can really see what all these creative teams are trying to go for, which adds just such a special feel to each one. The second last project of the year is another Marvel Animation project, and it is a spin-off from a Season 1 episode of What If. We have Marvel Zombies releasing around about Halloween. This apparently picks up right after where the What If Season 1 episode ended. Again, I haven't watched What If, so I don't really know where that leaves us. I think I read somewhere Thanos is a zombie and he has the gauntlet. That's cool, I guess. A few things to note here is that the characters who have been announced are the Phase 4 and 5ers. I think Yelena's there, I think Shang-Chi's there. We also have a zombified Icarus from the Eternals. Good to see the Eternals coming back, especially when we want to talk about the next project, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And I think including these Phase 4 and 5 characters here helps the growth of Marvel out of this. Because we haven't had any Avengers movies, we haven't really been able to connect to a lot of these characters. So if we see them more, if we see, I think, Yelena and Shang-Chi and all these other guys, I think we Kamala Khan there as well, we see them in more things, we care about them more. So then when they show up in live action, we care about them more again. Can't really lose. It's also apparently rated R, which is quite cool. It is the Marvel Studios debut of Blade officially, because I guess he's just a disembodied voice in the Eternals, and I think Blade's Moon Knight? Hell yeah! And then finally, the last project releasing in 2025 is Wonder Man. I am so excited for Wonder Man. For those who don't know, Simon Williams is a hero with ionic powers. He can kind of do anything, fly, be strong, beat up bad guys. Superhero. He was initially a villain who got his powers through some Zemo experiment and was told to join the Avengers under the guise of being a hero to take down Tony Stark because he had problems with Tony Stark, and then he goes to become an Avenger, then realises that's good and that's the right thing to do, and Zemo has like a cure because his ionic powers are killing him, because comics, and then he heroically sacrifices himself and saves the Avengers and doesn't die, and dies. And then he comes back to life because comics, and then he gets with like Carol and Wanda, and he like hangs out with Beast. It's a cool comic, him and Beast playing ping pong that I found on the internet somewhere, and I think that's quite cool. And he just kind of hangs out, be's an Avenger for a bit, and then eventually one day goes, I'm fucking sick of avenging, I'm going to go and become an actor. And that's his thing, that's his gimmick. He's a big superhero who does Hollywood movies and is a celebrity. That's kind of it. Now, this show has Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, one of my favourite actors working right now, I absolutely love him, as Simon Williams. And it looks like from the trailer, he's auditioning to play Wonder Man, so maybe he has powers and he's auditioning to be in it because he doesn't really want to be a hero, and then he learns he has to be a hero, or maybe he is just playing him on TV and then he gets powers and decides to make his TV character a superhero because he realises that he has a responsibility now. I don't know, but this looks like a lot of fun. We have Ben Kingsley returning as Trevor, as Simon's acting coach. I think there's a good chance that Marvel's biggest Bollywood star Kingo returns to this, which I also think would be fantastic. And the guy who wrote this, Andrew Guest, has wrote on 30 Rock, among other things, but most importantly, wrote 5 episodes of Community. He wrote 2 episodes in season 1, but more importantly, he wrote 3 episodes in season 2. These are the episodes he wrote in season 2. Messianic Myths and Ancient Peoples, the one where Abed becomes Jesus and makes a documentary about himself making a documentary about himself. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and A Fistful of Paintballs. So, that is it, the entire Marvel slate for the year 2025. Everything from January to December, all of the projects that we're going to be looking at, that we're going to be watching this year, rather. I'm very excited for this year. Now, putting my faith in Marvel has left me scorned in the past, looking at you, 2023. But I think we can do it. I think it's going to be a good year. And if it's not, we have Superman. And if Superman and the Fantastic Four stink, I don't even want to think about it. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know down in the comments below what you are most excited for this year from Marvel. Let me know what projects you're excited for, what you're not that excited for. Do you have high hopes for the movies like I do? Are you skeptical about them? Let me know all your thoughts in those comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Show all your friends. Say to them, hey, look at this handsome man with good comic book movie opinions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.